terms of energy released, it's almost 1,000 times more energy, but it happens over a much larger area and over a longer time. This earthquake probably went on for several minutes. The really big difference in the way you have that much greater energy is because because you have so much longer a fault. And I would think about 400 miles at least would have been on top of an earthquake this size.
Real quick, I just want to bring people in. If they're just tuning in, it is 2:51 here on the East Coast. We are bringing you live pictures out of Japan, where there has been an 8.9 quake off the northeastern coast, about 2.5 hours north of Tokyo, where there were reports there in Tokyo that buildings shook, workers on a busy Friday, as you can imagine, it was 2:46 local time in the afternoon on a busy Friday when this actually struck. Workers streaming out onto the streets. You can see there, as a result, fires have broken out, as Dr. Lucy Jones with the U.S. Geological Survey has said is something very common that we would see with a magnitude earthquake of 8.9. There have been a series of aftershocks, including one that was 7.4 in magnitude that came about 30 minutes later. Most significantly were the reports of a tsunami, where we saw dramatic pictures coming out of the Miyagi prefecture of houses, cars, farms being completely swept away. The airport there in Miyagi totally underwater. People on top of roofs, waving white flags, indicating their need for rescue. Japan's national broadcaster was warning those near the coast to get safer ground, obviously, as the tsunami continues to move. Now we have learned that a tsunami warning has been issued for Hawaii and the West Coast. So as we got you up to speed, I want to bring back in Dr. Lucy Jones, because one of the questions that we would have to ask is, if we first heard about this about 1:15 East Coast time, as we first learned about this, we heard it was a 7.9 quake, and as Chris Warren described, that's huge, that's significant. But then for it to be upgraded to an 8.9, give us a little bit of an idea of how that may transpire and how significant that is.
The main thing about that is that you have to have a much larger fault to produce it, which means you're moving a much larger piece of the ocean floor, and that it's the earthquakes above 8.6, 8.8 where you start seeing the huge tsunamis. So these are the classic tsunami earthquakes. Has an implication for the whole Pacific Basin. I mean, for Japan and the earthquake shaking that they've received, being this much bigger an earthquake means it would have lasted for a much longer time and affected a much larger area.
And we talked a little bit about some of the aftershocks. What are some of the things that people need to worry about?
Well, they're going to continue. They're going to continue for years. And there have already been something close to 10 magnitude 6s. There's somewhere between 7 and 10.
Just since this struck?
Just since it struck. One of them was, I think the largest I saw was 7.1. One of them was only 40 miles northeast of Tokyo. And another one was about 300 miles northeast of Tokyo. So that gives you a feeling of the length of this fault. They're going to continue. There could easily be a 7.5, a 7.9 aftershock. Not certain, but definitely possible. The other thing I think that's going to be happening is there's going to continue to be seeing fires. Japan has been, historically, there has been some really horrible fires following earthquakes in Japan. In 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake, 150,000 people died, mostly being burned in Tokyo.
Where you're talking about these fires, we saw some of them breaking out in Tokyo. Are you talking that kind of a significant fire breaking out in such a populated area such as Tokyo, or maybe something in an area like Miyagi Prefecture?
It could be all of them. I mean, if they get going in Tokyo, it becomes much more devastating because you have closely packed buildings and the fire can turn into conflagration, which is what happened in 1923.
Dr. Jones, I apologize that I need to interrupt you, but we are getting word that there's a press conference right now with the Japanese